Hi guys, it's Ariel. So today I'm going to be talking about well, kind of two different things. It's Uproar 2012 and a little bit of Warped Tour 2012. Because Warped Tour actually came before Uproar, but I've already made a video about that, so I decided I'm not going to really go into it too much because you can just watch that really old video. Literally, that video is from 2012. And I talked a little bit about Uproar around that same time too, but I didn't go into full detail about Uproar. I kind of explained all I needed to about Warped Tour. Basically, I'm just going to say this. First off, I'm going to say if you want the full details, you'll have to go watch the video. But I don't like Warped Tour. I went to West Palm Beach, Florida on July 22nd, I believe. It might have been 27th. I'm not sure. I cannot remember. With really high expectations, and ended up having it all just crash down, and I ended up not even getting to see any band perform. And like I said, there's a whole video about that, so you'll have to watch that. And then now, Uproar 2012 was actually the experience I thought Warped Tour was going to be. This was on September 13th, 2012, and I got to interview Deuce, Candlelight Red, and Within Reason. Within Reason and Candlelight Red, I believe, were actually given me. I know Within Reason was. The day before the show, actually, I received an email from their press people or manager, I don't remember, one of the two, asking if I would interview them at the show, and of course, I wasn't going to turn it down. They sent me their EP, and they were like, please check it out, let us know if you want to, and I'm like, hell yes, I want to, because I'm not going to turn down an interview, because that's fun, and why not? And they're really good. I was impressed, so I was like, definitely. I'm pretty sure Candlelight Red I didn't ask for either, but I can't remember for sure, so I'm just going to say that right there, that I don't remember if I was offered it or if I asked. Deuce, however, I did ask, and I actually was very, very nervous to meet him because I kept hearing that he was such an asshole, and honestly, I thought the exact opposite. I thought he was really nice and really fun. You can check out that interview and Candlelight Red as videos here on my channel. They're going to be linked in the description, along with the Within Reason one, and the Warped Tour video, as well as other links like Facebook and things. Anyways, here was the thing. I went to I went to Uproar actually with someone I'd never met. My friend's older brother, who was a last minute ride because mine all of a sudden fell through. I can't remember all the details, but it all of a sudden just fell through and nobody was able to take me. And I don't have a license at the moment. I might have to make another video about that because I'm sure people will ask, but I couldn't, and it was just like I was freaking out going, I have interviews, I can't do this, no. And at the time, Deuce was the biggest interview I'd ever gotten. I'm like, I can't pass this up, are you fucking kidding me? No. So my mom called up my friend's mom and asked if he was free, and said yes, and then they had us talking, and we went 2 hours north to a concert with people neither one of us knew each other. We had never met in person. We never talked in person. I had heard about him because obviously he's my friend's older brother, but I knew nothing about this kid. So literally we just sat in the car talking for 2 hours, and he was cool. And the funny thing is, and girls, you'll be interested in this, some of you, maybe some guys too, no judgment, I don't know. He sounded like Andy Biersack. I realized that after about an hour of talking to him, like, dude, you sound like Andy from Black Veil Brides. He was like, really? And he sort of smiled. I remember him being like, most girls think Andy's voice is kind of sexy. And I'm like, well, take that as a compliment then. But anyway, this isn't about that. I need a drink. Bunny reference, except more subtle. Sorry, if anybody get that reference, yay, I like you. Anyways, so we get to the show, and I had no problems whatsoever. Like, sometimes you have problems getting your photo passes, even if you have one. I literally just went right up to the lady, told the lady my name, and she was like, Immortal Music? And I'm like, yeah. And I just was like so excited because that was the easiest one I had ever gotten. Literally, we got over to the field where everything was going on, because of course this was in an amphitheater. I don't know if anybody's been to not Warped Tour, been to Uproar, but it's all in an amphitheater in like at least at our venue, nothing was in the amphitheater except for the big bands, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But literally, the second we got over there, I was like in front of barricades taking pictures back and forth between the two small stages. Unfortunately, my photo pass was only for the smaller stages, but it was still one hell of an experience. The funny thing is, I was the only girl up there. Like, every other one was like middle-aged men, and after the third time I did it, a guy was like, saw me and he was like, yeah, this one, I'm impressed with her. I've been seeing her running back and forth between these stages, is having a good time taking pictures the whole time, and she's the only girl up here. Kudos to you. And I'm like, yay, thank you. And it was actually really cool because all the bands that saw me taking pictures for them, at some point I ended up running into, every single one of them thanked me. Every single one of them had acknowledged me because they saw me. There was, let's see, Soul Switch, which is a band from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I believe. They're from Florida. I just don't remember for sure if it's Fort Lauderdale. Mindset Evolution, Deuce, well, 9 Lives, Candlelight Red, and Within Reason. Oh, yeah, so there was 5 that I actually did. Every single one of them acknowledged it, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I actually don't have too many stories for when they all were up there, except for I was really surprised, one, by the fact that a lot of people weren't really crowding around the stages when bands were on stage. It was really weird to me. And Deuce, however, as soon as he was getting ready to get on stage, everyone all of a sudden just swarmed, and I was so just like, whoa. I was impressed by that, and I actually told Deuce that, and I think I might have said that in the interview, not before the camera got turned on. I really don't remember. It was really funny during Mindset Evolution's set. I had actually never heard of them, and they're really, really good. If you get a chance to check them out, I highly recommend it. But it was really funny during their set because right after I got taken away from the barricade because, well, from in front of the barricade. For those who don't know, if you have a photo pass, you're only allowed up there usually during the first 3 songs. I have had experiences where you were up there a little bit longer, but for the most part, it's the first 3 songs. I don't know why, that's just the rule. But I was right behind the barricade then, and all of a sudden got slammed into it really hard. I'm like, oh fuck, mosh pit. And this girl was like right behind me, and she accidentally got slammed into me, and I kind of thought it was her fault at first, so I might have given her a shitty look. And all of a sudden she like grabs a hold of me and like pulls me back, so I'm like not against the barricade, and she's like, oh my god, are you okay? She's like, I'm sorry. She's like, they shoved me. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm like, you're fine. And I asked her if she was okay, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay. And she's like, it was a little bit bigger than me, so she felt bad that she like slammed into me, and I'm like, you're fine, really. And then we turn around, there's literally 3 people not moshing anymore, but dancing. Mindset Evolution does scream somewhat, and it was hilarious because their lead singer, I think his name's Ryan, noticed this dance pit just going on and couldn't even contain himself. He started laughing so hard, and I just thought it was hilarious. I really did. And also, they have a song called Rise. Their guitarist or bassist, I don't remember which one now, had a screwed up foot. I think they said he just blew out his knee like 2 days before that, but he refused to like be off the tour. He's sitting there on a lawn chair on the stage with his leg out just because he couldn't get up, and then he was like, we have a song called Rise, and I dedicated this one because he can't rise. And it was just really funny. And I did buy their EP there because it was only available there, and it was only $5. I also bought I got a poster, which I got signed, and this is what was really cool, is I went over to their merch person and asked for the CD, and then he also was like, by the way, if you want to get that signed, they're doing their meet and greet right now. And I'm like, oh, cool, sure, because I had time to kill before, I think it was in between Deuce and them, or them and Deuce, because they were on before. Pretty sure it was in between that. I don't remember. Like, I might be telling some of these things out of context a little bit, because it was all like a whirlwind of a day, but it was so cool. So I go over there, and like, I'm standing in line, and like, they signed the poster for me, And the funniest thing ever is I get up there, I didn't even say anything. I opened my mouth to say hi, and the lead singer was like, I saw you taking pictures. Thank you. And I'm like, thank you for noticing. That was cool. Like, I was impressed with you guys. I'm like, I've honestly never heard of you, and I was really impressed. And he was like just so tickled by that, and like the whole rest of the band ended up acknowledging it too, and that was really cool. Soul Switch had before that, because they were just sort of hanging out at their merch tent, and I kept walking over by it. The funny thing was, I didn't have any interviews planned until a certain time. I can't remember the exact time. I remember Deuces was at 4:20. Stoners might be excited over that time. And I don't remember the other ones. He was supposed to be the last one of the day though, but no, he was supposed to be the first one. He was supposed to be the first one, that's what it was. And I ended up getting kind of annoyed with him. This one is hilarious with me, because he's ended up telling this story since then too. After Deuce got off stage, I was supposed to interview him like as soon as he got off the stage. He ended up doing an impromptu meet and greet where like half of Uproar wanted to go meet him. Like literally there was a line from his merch tent all the way through the field. And it was just crazy to me. And I was like sitting there going, what the hell, I have an interview with you. You're not getting out of this. No. So I didn't want to stand in this freakishly long line and just waste my time. So I walk up behind him to the backup rapper Belay. His name's actually Brian, I think, but Belay. And for those who don't know, Belay is a really big, burly, tattooed black guy who's probably like 6 foot tall, and I'm like tiny. So to most people, this would have been very intimidating. I just walk up, tap him on the shoulder, and he like turns around and like gets down to my level because a band was playing. I don't remember who. Somebody was on stage, and I feel like it was Fozzy. Yeah, I feel like it was Fozzy. I didn't watch their set at all. I was distracted, and you'll understand why in a minute. But anyway, he like leaned down so he could hear me, and he's like, hi. And I'm like, hi. And he was like, what's up? And I'm assuming he probably thought I was going to ask for like a picture or an autograph or something. And I was like, where's your manager? He all of a sudden stood up. Deuce heard me. They both exchanged the most worried look on their face ever. Like, holy shit, what the fuck did we do? And I saw the concern. I like just pointed to Deuce. I'm like, I just have an interview with you. And he's like, oh, okay. And then Belay's like relaxes. And then he's like, oh, she's right there. So I walk underneath the tent, and their manager, who's also their keyboard player, was standing right there. And I just was like, hi, and told her I had an interview, and then I also pointed out, I'm like, you can tell that he's busy all of a sudden, and I'm like, I'm not going to interrupt that. Let him finish. But I'm like, I really would still like my interview. And she's like, yeah, how about we trade phone numbers so I can text you when he's done, and then you can just come out. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And we traded phone numbers, and I was like, well, since I still had time to kill, I really didn't care about who was on stage at that time. And I was like, well, I have other interviews, might as well. I walked around the corner to the other merch tents, because they all were like set up like back to back. And I walked around to Within Reason, and here's the thing, is I had been offered Within Reason for an interview, but I had not really been told any details of how to meet them, like how to get the interview at all. I had been told to meet them at the merch tent, but I had not been told the time, and I had not been told who I was meeting. So I was like, and I didn't have a phone number or anything. They hadn't given me one. I had just gotten the interview the night before. I like scrambled to figure out questions and then left the next morning. I didn't have a choice. So I figured, well, I'm not going to just get out of this without trying. So I just walked over and saw that the lead singer, Chris, that was his name, sorry, almost forgot for a second. I saw that their lead singer was over there with like merch people and like some other people, and I was like walked over and I'm like, hey, so I was supposed to have an interview with you, but I wasn't told who to meet or anything, so if you're not busy, maybe we could just do this now. And he was like, yeah, sure. And he was like really excited too, and he was like so thankful because then right before we started doing the interview, he first couldn't find a chair for me or him. I don't remember if he was actually in a chair, but he couldn't find one for me for sure. So he walks over to a tent right next to it, which was like, I don't remember whose tent that was. I feel like it was 1,000 Foot Crutch, but I can't swear by that. Anyways, he walks over and he's like, hey, can we borrow this box? And they were like, yeah. So he drags over, he's like, have a seat. And my feet didn't even touch the floor when I sat on it, but it was funny. And he's sitting next to me and we're like yelling to talk. He said I could film if I wanted to, but I don't think my audio would have picked us up at all. It would have picked up the band playing, which I did know for sure was definitely Fozzy at that point, because I asked him who was on stage if he knew, because I explained that I had been like scrambling trying to find interviews and stuff, so I had no idea who was playing, and he was like, yeah, I think it's Fozzy. And I'm like, okay. But the funny thing is, he was like really thankful and really grateful for me to be interviewing him. Really, he thanked me for taking pictures and thank you for supporting. And I'm like, dude, you don't need to thank me. This is what I do. I love it, and I love helping, and that's just something I do. And the funny thing is, I'm like scribbling to write it all down. I should actually show you guys the notebook. In fact, I will. So this is the notebook I bring with me to interviews. I always have this thing with me. But yeah, so this was my within reason questions. They all look like really nice and neat. And then this was my answering. It was like not that neat because I'm like just scribbling trying to write, and as fast as he was like answering me, and he understood, and he was like had the time, so he didn't care. But I wasn't looking around at my surroundings at all. And then there was one of the questions near the end of it. It was best tour stories, and he's like, man, I wish I could tell you about last night, but I can't. And I'm like, fuck, what happened last night? And he was like, I can't tell you. Let's just say it involved Deuce, and we all shouldn't have been. He's like, we all should have not been doing it. And I am feeling it was some crazy party, but I don't know. They wouldn't tell me. So then he all of a sudden says to somebody else, he's like, hey, best like tour story or something like that. And I'm like, look up then and realize that, oh, the bassist David was standing right there the whole time, and I didn't realize that. I'm like, I think I interrupted him even. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were here. Hi. And like, I felt so bad because or else I would have been like actively trying to include him. And I wasn't. So there was that. But they were really nice and really like just great people. I was very happy with them. And then in the middle of that, my friend was texting me because I had lost him and walked past him 4 times, like I was on a mission. That's what he said. I was actually had been texting him while I was looking for Deuce, going, where the hell are you? He's like, right where you left me. You walked past like you were on a mission. Apparently I get really bad tunnel vision at concerts. So if you ever go to a concert with me, don't be surprised if I walk away. It's not anything personal. I didn't do it. But he was texting me. I told him to meet me over near Within Reason's merch tent. And right before I got finished, Deuce's manager texted me. It was like, hey, you can come on back to the bus. We're done. And I was like so excited. But I told her, I'm like, I don't think they're going to let me just walk on back there. So you're going to have to come get me. And she's like, okay. She's like, meet me at the big Monster can. Because, I mean, Uproar, I keep wanting to say Warped Tour, is sponsored by Monster Energy drinks. And they had like a giant inflatable one. And she was like, meet me over there. And I'm like, okay. And my friend Conrad met up with me. And, well, he wasn't my friend, like I already said. But Conrad met up with me and was like, I'm like, okay, we're going to try to get you to come back with me. I don't know if they'll let you. So I handed him my camera so it even looked more, like he was actually there for that reason. And we walk over and she happens to already be standing there. And she's like, is he with you? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, come on. Didn't even have to ask. And we walked back there and she just sort of let me on the bus. And now looking back at it, I really should have walked to the other buses and asked for interviews, like impromptu. But I didn't think about it. This is not how I am. And we go on there, and Deuce is already sitting there with his bodyguard. The best way I want to describe him is like Gabriel Iglesias, but a little bit tougher looking, but not all at the same time. I don't know. He kind of reminded me of Gabriel Iglesias. If you don't know who he is, look him up. But yeah, so then we sat down and it was just like, we're doing the interview, and pretty much literally everything that happened on camera, so you guys can just watch the interview and you'll see the pretty much entire experience. We talked for a few minutes before the camera got turned on, and I took a picture. I also took pictures with the lead singer of Red Light King, not Red Light King, that's another story I'm getting to in a few minutes, with Within Reason, and I think that's it. Yeah, those are the only pictures I got all day, I think, of me with anybody. I'll flash those here. There you go. But yeah, that interview just went like overly well, and I was so happy with it. Then we had a little bit of time to kill, like, because I went out, no, didn't have time to kill yet. I thought I had my Candlelight Red interview, and I went over to their merch tent and asked, by myself, by the way, because as we tried to get back into the venue, the security guard said I was allowed because I had a press pass, but they stopped Conrad because he didn't, even though he could clearly see that he was with me. I told him that I had permission to have him with me from Deuce's manager, and he was like, well, I can't let him back in. And I'm like, fuck. So he's like, I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna run, get my talk, clear my other interview, and then I'll be back. And I run inside to the venue, go over to Candlelight Red's merch tent, and I had already talked to their merch guy like 2 or 3 different times, so he recognized me, and I never actually, I don't know what his name was at all. I never thought to ask. But ran over to him like, hey, I'm supposed to have my interview soon with them. I'm like, can you possibly see if they're free? And he's like, yeah. So he like radios them, and he's like, hey, I got a girl here that wants to, she has an interview with them and she'd like to do that soon. And they're like, well, we're busy until like 6 o'clock. And it was like, well, fuck. And he's like, can you go back at like 6? So I'm like, yeah, I'm still gonna be here. We're at a concert. And I was like, okay, fine. 6 o'clock, I'll be there. And it was actually, I think it was like 6:30 I had to be there. I don't remember exactly the times. I just remember I ended up missing Stained for that interview, which is okay. I only really know one Stained song, and I heard them playing it as I was walking back to the venue. But sorry if this is getting boring. This is a really long story because there was a lot to do. But anyways, I walk back then over to Conrad because I wanted to still keep trying to get him back in the venue. And as I'm walking back, he and the security guard are walking towards me. And I'm like, oh, you're letting him in? He like holds up $5. Yeah, he had to bribe the security to let him back in. That was funny. And we get in and we're like, okay, 1,000 Foot Crutch. Was it 1,000 Foot Crutch or was it P.O.D. that was on stage? No, it was P.O.D. that was on stage. No. 1,000 Foot Crutch was just getting done, and then P.O.D. got on. And I really didn't care to see either one of them. Ironically, I have seen P.O.D. since then, but I didn't really care, and we were like, how about we just sit in the shade for a little bit and take a break? So we hid in the shade, and it actually wasn't hot out. Well, it was hot for most people. It was 85 and not humid. And I only remember that because I remember raving at how great the concert weather was. Keep in mind this is in September. In Florida, September is usually like the hottest month, that or August. And so the fact that we weren't dying was just wonderful. And we're just sitting there relaxing, listening to P.O.D. And honestly, I think they were best at Uproar than they were at the other show that I'll eventually get to. But yeah, there's that. And then we had to go over to the amphitheater, and I honestly I was excited to see Adelita's Way again because, as you saw in the last video, I've already seen them. And I gotta say, I was so tired at that point, it finally hit me. Because I hadn't sat down, I hadn't stopped moving. And it was about 5 o'clock at this point, so I hadn't stopped moving at all in 5 hours. The longest I had sat down was when I was doing the 2 interviews. And then taking the probably 20-minute break it was. And, so I get inside and sit in the amphitheater, and I'm just, like, done. It's like I was so tired. Like, I was almost falling asleep during Adelita's Way, even though I was actually really excited to see them again. And I, was, like, really enjoying it, though. I honestly think they were so much better at Uproar. I did not really take very many pictures because I wasn't close. I tried. I actually really tried to get close. I wanted to be in front of the barricade so bad, too, that I first tried to sneak down there, and then I tried to ask 2 different security guards if they would just let me go down there. The one lady said if she wouldn't get in trouble, she'd say yes. But the other guy was just not having it. He was like, no, go. And I'm like, damn it. And I didn't realize at the time that the passes even were different. I just figured I'd try it, and it didn't work. Oh well. Maybe another time. But, anyways, like, I was really impressed with their performance. I feel like they do better in big, venues than they do in little venues. And the acoustics were better, and I don't know. I just thought it was cool. But I kind of took Adelita's Way as a time to just chill, even though I was excited to see them. Like, I was sitting there like this most of the time, like, singing along, like, you know, just sort of absent-mindedly. And I don't remember, I think I tried to take a couple of pictures, but you couldn't really see who was on the stage, and I knew I had to walk all the way back to the bus area, which was across the street from the venue, by the way. And venues are pretty big, so it was probably a decent-sized walk after a whole day of walking around as it was. But, after Adelita's Way, I walked back over there. The security guards let me out. Or no, they wouldn't let me out. I walked over and I'm like, hey, I have an interview, so I gotta walk over there. And they're like, you can't come back. If you leave, you're going home. And I'm like, no, I have a photo pass. I'm like, and a press pass and an interview. I'm gonna be right across the street in a bus. And she was like, well, you need some proof or something. I didn't have a working phone number. All the phone numbers that I had been given didn't work. In fact, one of them was for Papa Roach, who was supposed to be at that show, but then Jacoby screwed up his voice and wasn't able to. I had been told that phone number was for Deuce, and that was actually Papa Roach, and they didn't answer anyway. So that was helpful. So then I just waited and waited, and then finally saw someone that was clearly a press person, or not a press person, a merch person, or somebody with a band. I could tell. So I just was like walked over to this guy, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry to be a pain, but I'm like, I have an interview in like 5 minutes and need over there. And he's like, well, who's the interview with? I'm like, Candlelight Red. And I realized that he was wearing a Red Light King hat. And he was like, oh, well, I have to head over that way anyway. Come with me. I helped him like take down a merch tent real fast, and then we walked over there. Come to find out, Red Light King and Candlelight Red were sharing a bus, and he brought me over there, and he's like, just go on in. Or he was like, no, right there's their manager. He's like, just follow them. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And their manager, Rizzo, come to find out, lives in the same town I do, which I think is really cool. And we walked over there with some other people that also had an interview. They went first, and I'm just sort of chilling in the front of the bus with him and Candlelight Red's merchandise person that I never actually figured out his name. We talked for probably a good 10 minutes or so, maybe longer, and we were sitting there. I was just fascinated by, one, a high-tech tour bus, because while, yes, I had been in Deuces was actually more of an RV, which was like smaller. It was not really anything special. It was more like a camper. There you go. That's a better word. It was more like a camper. This was a high-tech tour bus. And I just was like fascinated by it, and I was enjoying the air conditioning. I didn't care about much at that point. And we were sitting there talking about just various things. I can't remember half of our conversation, but I do remember finding out that the merch person was a very big Ask Alexandria fan, because we had been talking about bands and stuff, and I mentioned that, like, in a couple weeks I wanted to try to interview Ask Alexandria. He lit up. He was, like, doing paperwork also at the table across from me, because I was sitting on the couch and he was sitting at, like, our kitchen table, and all of a sudden he just stopped and, like, smiled, like, "Dude, you're an Ask Alexandria fan." He's like, "Mm-hmm." And I was like, that's awesome. Baffled one of the band members, because me and Rizzo were, like, talking about roads in our hometown. And they were like, "I have no idea what the hell you're talking about." And I'm sitting there at one point looking at what I thought was a closet, and then all of a sudden it opened, and I'm like, the guy, it was the drummer for Candlelight Red, walked out, and I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. There was a lot of people I met that day, and this was a little over 2 years ago. A little under 2 years ago. Like a year and a half ago. And it was so funny. I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize that was a bathroom." And he was like, "You didn't?" I'm like, "No, not at all. I thought that was a closet." And he started laughing and, like, called into the bunk area. He, like, called into the bunk area and was like, "Hey, you can have the shower." And someone else was like, "Yeah, sure, thanks." And he, like, starts messing around in the kitchen, and we're, like, talking, and I asked him about, like, the bus showers, if they're really as annoying as everyone says, and yes, they are, apparently. And this guy all sort of walks out. I didn't have a clue who this guy was. I didn't really care. Like I said, it was a long day. I was tired. I was enjoying the air conditioning. Nothing mattered to me at that point. And he walks out in his underwear and jumped about a foot in the air, because he didn't realize there was a girl in the bus. And he's like, hides behind the drummer of Candlelight Red. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you're here." And I'm like, "Dude, it's your home. I don't care." And he's like, without thinking, I was like, "Besides, I see my dad in his underwear all the time. It doesn't matter." I was just trying to make him feel better. When I told my mom the story, she really thought I probably insulted him, because it was like I was comparing him to my dad, but I wasn't thinking like that. He kind of relaxed, but he still continued to hide. And I thought it was kind of funny. And looking back at it, I really should have asked to use their bathroom, just because I hadn't peed all day and I really needed to pee. I should have thought about it, but I didn't. It dawned on me right after I got off the bus, and I almost went back on to ask, but then I decided not to. But we stood there, all of us, just talking for a little while longer, and then the people that had the interview came back out from the back of the bus and were like, said they were done. So I was like, "Okay, cool." And I told them at the time that I had managed a band, so I ended up giving them a CD, because I had brought like 3 or 4 different CDs of World Virus, which is now Remedy X. And we go back, do the interview, and you can watch that. It was pretty laid back and chill. You could tell we all were tired, and it had been a long damn day. I couldn't even read my own questions. I was so tired. Like, I literally stumbled. You hear it in the interview. I didn't mean to. I just was so tired. And I felt kind of bad, just because I felt like I was, like, wasting their time being all, like, stumbly. But I couldn't help it. I don't think that's even a word. Good job, stumbly. It's fun to say. But it went really well, and then I just went back to the amphitheater, and as I was walking back, I heard Stained playing It's Been a While, which is the only song I really know by them, like, actively. And I was honestly ready to cry, because I went back to the venue, and the people still tried to tell me I couldn't get back in. I'm like, "Guys, you gotta be kidding me." I'm like, "I have a friend in there. You know, I walked back with Red Light King's manager." It's like, come on. And, like, all of a sudden, after about 5 minutes of them going, "Well," the lady all of a sudden handed me my bag, because they looked through everything. And she's like, "Here, go ahead. I don't care." And I'm like, "Thank you." So I go back in and sit down, and honestly, I was so tired, and the next band up was Godsmack, and I didn't really care too much to watch them, but I ended up enjoying their set a lot. I ended up standing back up after about 2 songs, because everybody else was standing. I honestly thought it was very humorous to hear 10,000 people screaming, "I stand alone," when they all were standing. I'm like, huh, you're not standing alone, you're standing with 10,000 people. I know, lame joke. I don't care. But I was actually impressed with them, although I do think it was also kind of weird that they, even though they were not the headliners, had a longer set than Shinedown did. I think they had a longer set. If not, it felt like it was longer. I was impressed with them though, so that was cool. Shinedown though, as soon as they got on the stage, I had like a burst of energy and wouldn't stop. Like, I was just having so much fun enjoying them. I can't ever say enough good about them. I've seen them live now 3 times, and I will go again. If they come back, I'm going again. I love Shinedown alive. They are incredible. If you haven't gotten to see them live, you need to. And, they actually really impressed me on several things, not only just because, 1, they're amazing, but 2, it was, a matter of the fact that I hadn't heard, Unity live yet, and they played that live, and I was like really impressed. And honestly, every single time they play their cover of Simple Man, I really feel like it's something almost spiritual. I don't know why. It just is. Like, they started playing that and somehow hearing like 10,000 people singing it was just like, whoa. It's just a moment where you just stand there, look around, smiling, going, this is incredible. And like, with Unity, seeing everybody's hands in the air at one point, and it just, I don't know, it was really amazing. And I can't say enough good. And during their set too, I actually managed to scream like a scream you hear in songs without meaning to. And one of their band members, I don't know which one because I was too far away, managed to scream. It wasn't Brent. I know it wasn't Brent. One of the other ones, I feel like it was Zach, screamed, and I was so impressed because I didn't know he could do that. And I was like, damn, he needs to do that more often. He's good at it. And I was really impressed, and I have seen Shinedown again since then. You'll hear that story soon. And the whole experience was incredible. It made up for the disappointment I just had with Warped Tour like 2 months before that. And yeah, all in all, that was the story, and it was great. I don't know what else to say about it. Hopefully you guys didn't get too bored, because I know this was a really long video, and I'm sorry. The rest of them aren't going to be overly long, I don't think. So the next one is going to be All Time Low. That may or may not be a long video. I apologize. I hope you guys enjoyed these anyways. Thank you for watching. The concert stories will be over soon, and then I'm going to be talking about one I'm going to soon. I am not going to the Bury the Hatchet tour after all with Falling in Verse and Escape the Fate. I wish I was, but I'm not. I just really can't swing the money. But I am definitely going to the sold out of Mice and Men and Bring Me the Horizon show. I think it's called the American Dream Tour, on February 4th, and I'm going to be vlogging, plus I'm going to probably do a recap video and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, this will be fun. I'm gonna go now. Thank you guys for watching. I love you. Goodbye.